I never caused harm to Maddie, and I am innocent. Thank you.
The 31st of March, 2023. A seemingly normal morning unfolds in the small town of Winona, Minnesota. The sky is gray, early spring still clings to the air, and inside a modest house on Cary Drive, 6-year-old Maddie Kingsbury, an employee at Mayo Clinic and a graduate student in public health, is getting ready to drop her 2 young children off at daycare. Her ex-boyfriend and co-parent, Adam Fravel, joins her. Though their relationship had ended, they were still living together to co-raise the kids. No one knew this would be the last time anyone would see Maddie alive. Around 8 a.m., daycare cameras captured Maddie and Adam dropping off little Eliana and Noah. Maddie smiled softly, said goodbye. A tired young mother, yet her eyes were still full of warmth for her children. As the 2 adults left the daycare center, everything seemed fine, no visible tension, no arguments, no signs of trouble. Maddie returned home around 8:15 a.m. From that moment on, she vanished. The first alarm sounded when Maddie didn't show up for work, something completely out of character. Her best friend Katie instantly sensed something was wrong when their usual morning texts suddenly stopped. Concerned, Katie drove to Maddie's house, knocked on doors and windows, no answer. The house was quiet, undisturbed. No signs of forced entry, no broken glass, no blood. But something felt off. Police were called. They examined the residence but found no indication of a struggle. Yet one detail stood out. Maddie's purse, keys, phone, and even her van were all still at home. A mother of 2 doesn't just walk away, leaving behind everything she needs. You might think it was a disappearance, but in a small town like Winona, where everyone knows everyone, fear spreads faster than facts. Within 24 hours, neighbors and strangers formed search parties, trekking through woods, ravines, trails, and abandoned properties, desperately hoping to find Maddie alive. What they didn't know was that the man she had lived with, the one who told police his story, was already starting to show cracks in his version of events. From the very beginning, Adam Fravel, Maddie's ex-boyfriend, the father of her 2 children, and the last person to see her, became the most critical piece of the puzzle. He claimed to have no idea what happened to Maddie, but when police began asking questions, Adam's behavior raised more than a few eyebrows. He was disturbingly calm. During his initial interview, Adam stated that he and Maddie had dropped off the kids together that morning. He said Maddie returned home while he left around 10 a.m. in her van to move belongings to his parents' house. When he came back later, she was gone. He texted her, tried calling, but received no response. That was it. He didn't call the police. He didn't notify family or friends. He didn't join any search efforts. His lack of concern was jarring, especially when the mother of his children had simply vanished. Soon, the cracks began to show. Adam said Maddie had a meeting in Rochester that morning, but her work schedule contradicted this. He claimed he accidentally loaded the wrong boxes into the van and had to turn around mid-trip, an odd detail that would later unravel his timeline. Surveillance footage would eventually place Maddie's van in locations inconsistent with his account, including near land owned by Adam's parents. Investigators also took note of the scratches on Adam's face and neck. He brushed them off, saying they came from playing with his kids, but the placement along his nose and jawline suggested otherwise. They were more consistent with defensive wounds. Then came the chilling detail that turned the tone of the case darker. Maddie had once confided to friends that Adam joked, "If you don't listen, you'll end up like Gabby Petito." When asked, Adam admitted to saying it, calling it a stupid joke. But for Maddie's loved ones, it wasn't funny. It was a threat, wrapped in a smirk. Investigators grew more suspicious. Adam wasn't just passive, he was calculated. He offered too little emotion, too much convenience, and too many tidy explanations. Meanwhile, Maddie, devoted mother, committed student, beloved daughter, was still missing. And her town kept searching, walking through woods and hills, praying for something, anything, that might bring her home. When someone goes missing, investigators start with the timeline, minute by minute. And in Maddie Kingsbury's case, the gaps in Adam Fravel's story quickly became impossible to ignore. One of the first red flags. The day before Maddie disappeared, Adam had disabled all location services on his phone. He also disconnected the home security cameras, removed the SD cards, and deleted his online account with the camera company. In the garage, investigators found empty boxes, no equipment, no footage. The act wasn't careless. It was deliberate. Soon after, authorities expanded their search to Adam's parents' property in Mabel, Minnesota. There, they found something deeply unsettling: a smoldering pile of destroyed electronics in the backyard. Burnt devices, data, possibly evidence, turned to ash. But the real breakthrough came when Adam was spotted on a trail camera, riding a UTV, utility terrain vehicle, on private land near the same property. In the back of the vehicle, a shovel. Police brought in cadaver dogs. They reacted strongly to the shovel and to the UTV itself. Then, on the 69th day since Maddie had vanished, an investigator in Fillmore County followed an unexpected clue: the sound of flies. Deep in a wooded area off an unpaved road, hidden beneath layers of natural debris, he found Maddie's body. She had been wrapped in a gray-fitted bedsheet and secured with black gorilla tape, a type of tape investigators had already found in Adam's home. The fitted sheet? A match for a missing piece from a bedding set in the house. There was no longer a question of whether a crime had occurred. Maddie had been suffocated. Though there was no direct DNA tying Adam to her death, what stood out was what wasn't there: no DNA from anyone else. No sign of a stranger. Just absence, silence, and a scene carefully managed to erase evidence, until nature made that impossible. Suddenly, everything that had seemed suspicious, the inconsistencies, the detached tone, the joke about Gabby Petito, transformed from weird details into a roadmap to murder. This wasn't a disappearance. It was an execution. The question now shifted. Not, what happened to Maddie? But, will justice be enough for the life she tried so hard to reclaim? Once Maddie's death was confirmed, the case officially shifted from a missing persons investigation to a homicide. But what devastated her family and enraged the public was how calculated and cold Adam Fravel's behavior had been all along. He didn't attend any of the searches. He skipped public vigils. He didn't speak to Maddie's family. And when public suspicion began to mount, Adam hired a lawyer and issued a single statement through his attorney: "I did not harm Maddie. I just want the mother of my children to come home." To the trained eyes of investigators, that was the move of a man posturing for innocence, not grieving a loss. They began connecting deeper threads, starting with motive. Maddie had begun seeing someone new, a former college acquaintance named Spencer. She had signed a lease on a new apartment and planned to move out the very weekend she disappeared. Maddie had given Adam a deadline. He needed to be out of the house by Monday. For a man who was both financially and emotionally dependent on her, that wasn't just a breakup. It was annihilation. Adam had no stable job, no separate residence, and no long-term plan. Losing Maddie meant losing everything. Despite claiming he was fine with the separation, Maddie's friends said otherwise. Adam was jealous, controlling. He had even demanded that Maddie stop texting Spencer while they still lived together. Maddie had once told a friend, "If anything ever happens to me, look at Adam first." Now prosecutors faced a complex legal challenge. No eyewitnesses, no murder weapon, no confession. Everything was circumstantial. But piece by piece, the narrative hardened: camera data wiped, GPS disabled, inconsistent stories, suspicious scratches, her body found near property tied to him. In June 2023, Adam Fravel was arrested and charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 intentional, 1 unintentional. He now faced life in prison without parole. As he awaited trial, the community that once searched for Maddie in wooded ravines now waited for something else: justice. Not revenge, just truth spoken plainly and backed by evidence. The kind of truth Maddie herself had tried to live out in her final days. In September 2024, over a year after Maddie Kingsbury vanished, the trial of Adam Fravel officially began. But the public wouldn't witness it. The judge denied media access to the courtroom. No cameras, no live coverage, just silence and the weight of a tragedy too deep to be televised. The prosecution had no video, no eyewitness, no direct DNA connecting Adam to the act of murder. What they had instead was a meticulously layered case, a timeline full of gaps, devices erased and burned, contradictory statements, destroyed surveillance, an unshakable digital trail, and Maddie's body found near his parents' land, wrapped in bedding tied to his home. Each piece, on its own, might raise suspicion. Together, they screamed intent. Adam sat through the trial expressionless. Until the very end, just before the jury returned with its verdict, his composure broke. He wept, not when evidence was presented, not when Maddie's family spoke, but when the truth finally closed in. Guilty. Guilty on all counts of second-degree murder. The courtroom fell still. Maddie's family didn't cheer. There was no relief, no victory. Only sorrow and the knowledge that justice, however necessary, could never fill the void Maddie left behind. During the sentencing, family members stood to speak. Their voices broke, but their words were clear. Maddie did everything right. She left a toxic relationship. She chose safety. She chose to give her kids a better life. And for that, she was punished. When Adam was asked if he had any final words, he offered a hollow denial. "I did not harm Maddie. I am innocent." The judge, unmoved, delivered the final judgment. "You took the life of a mother, a daughter, a human being who trusted you. For that, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." As the steel doors closed behind Adam Fravel, the legal chapter of this case came to an end. But the emotional one, the one Maddie's children would grow up inside, was just beginning. No one in Maddie Kingsbury's family ever imagined they would have to explain to two small children why their mother was gone and what their father had done. After the trial, life did not move on. It fractured. Her family now lived in a reality split between unbearable grief and unwavering responsibility, raising Eliana and Noah in the shadow of a tragedy. But they refused to let Maddie's story end in silence. In her honor, they founded a nonprofit organization aimed at protecting and supporting women in coercive, emotionally abusive relationships. Like the one Maddie had tried to leave, they spoke at community events, schools, and advocacy forums. They shared Maddie's story not as a headline, but as a warning. Abuse doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes, it leaves silence, shame, or a controlling presence behind closed doors. Because the truth is, Maddie had done everything right. She was not naive, not careless, not passive. She was strong, brave. She had made plans to leave. She signed a lease. She gave Adam a moving deadline. She set boundaries. She prioritized her children, and for that she lost her life. Her story serves as a haunting reminder of how the most dangerous moment in an abusive relationship is often when the victim tries to leave. Maddie's case exposed the fragility of safety for women who appear, on the surface, to be managing just fine. But her family would not allow her memory to fade. They made sure her children would grow up knowing exactly who their mother was, her laugh, her compassion, her dedication. They would also learn, when they were ready, what happened to her, and who made that choice for her. "She was the light of our family," Maddie's sister once said. "Now that light shines through every woman we help protect." Justice had been served, but Maddie's legacy had just begun. 69 days of searching, a trial behind closed doors, a sentence without parole, and behind it all, a name. Not the victim, not the ex-girlfriend, but Maddie, a devoted mother, a determined student, a woman brave enough to leave a relationship that had drained her financially, emotionally, spiritually, and who was on the verge of reclaiming her life when it was taken from her. When Maddie disappeared, people said she would never leave her kids. They were right. She didn't leave. She was taken. And that distinction matters. When Adam Fravel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of release, Maddie's family didn't celebrate. They didn't come for vengeance. They came to ensure that the truth was spoken and that Maddie's name would not vanish from public memory. Her children will grow up in a world where the truth is not buried. They will be told who their mother was, her warmth, her resilience, her quiet strength. And when they're old enough, they will also learn what happened to her and who made that choice. Behind courtroom walls, other women just like Maddie are still trying to leave. Some are packing bags in secret. Some are researching apartments. Some are whispering to themselves, "I can do this." If Maddie's story reaches even one of them in time, if her courage can light the path for another, then she lives on. She may be gone, but her story continues. In every woman who dares to leave, in every family that refuses to let silence win, in every step toward justice made in her name is Maddie, and she will not be forgotten.